Welcome to the 210th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thanks for listening. I'd like to shout out to a happy birthday to Addie Majnaric, my registered dietitian and daughter. It's her birthday week, so we were just at Houston visiting her and Nathan and celebrating her birthday and my mother's 86th birthdays together. They're a week apart, so it was a good time had by all. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We have had summer arrive here in Florida, so we're getting temperatures in the 90s, and our humidity is back, so it's an all-new kind of training down here. But that's okay. It's better than being cold. So into the swim, bike, run mode. So I'm up my swimming to twice a week for the moment, and try to start pumping up the bike to 2 or 3 times a week and keep the run going. And so far, so good. It's a nice change, adding the weight training in there. Addie's been doing some circuit workouts for our membership practice, and I've been doing one of those during the week at least, with a little bit extra stuff in, and then doing some other weight training, so that's all good. You know, sometimes circuit training, especially mainly body weight or light weights, you can say that, well, that's not going to be that big of a workout, but it really adds up when you're doing multiple reps and you keep going from one movement to the next, and you keep repeating it and go on. And so I felt it pretty good over the last couple of weeks with her little circuits that she's given. So it's all good. The focus for me is to stay injury-free as I ramp things up for Ironman Chattanooga training in September. So weight training is going to be a big part of that, as well as mobility training. You know, I have a few weak spots that seem to get me when I start getting volume or speed up, and so I have to pay a little bit closer attention to those. So the weight training should help. I'm going to try to be smarter, even though I'm a little bit older. So that's how the plan is, to train smart and listen to my body and not go crazy when just to do workouts for the heck of them. I'm going to try to add a little speed work in once a week or so. Again, nothing too great, but with coming off of the trail running, kind of long, slow distance things, and need to get a little bit of a speed back in, in my repertoire. So that's kind of the plan. As far as the Florida garden, the backyard garden scene here, the humidity and vegetables don't go together. So we're coming to the end of the season with tomatoes, and peppers are still going strong. Tomatoes are still going strong, but they're showing signs of not going to last. I just harvested a bunch of white potatoes that I planted, so that's really cool. And mangoes are starting to flourish, as well as guavas, papayas. So it's more fruit season down here than it is vegetable season right now. So we just came through blueberries and strawberries. Watermelons and cantaloupes are also coming in. Next thing in June, the mangoes start to come in, and some other tropical fruits. I know dragon fruit are starting to bloom. Sugar apples, those things. Of course, the guavas will probably be the end of summer. So it's my favorite time of the year. I really love fruit, and I really love a different variety of fruits. So this is a great time of year to be in Florida to get some good local fresh fruits and explore some of the tropical fruits. So if you haven't had, mamey sapotas or sugar apples or any of these other tropical fruits, try to find them. Dragon fruit, especially good. Now they're kind of popular, the pink ones, as far as in some of these bowls that some of the fast food places are serving. But if you can get a hold of a yellow dragon fruit, they're especially good. So that's kind of where we are garden-wise. You do get a fair amount of good workout in the yard this time of the year in Florida, because everything starts to grow a little faster. So I use that as part of my cross training as well. So getting out and doing a little weed whacking and taking care of the yard and the garden is always good to burn off a few extra calories. It was great to get to visit Addie and Nathan in Houston. It was my first trip for any length of time in Houston, And of course, Nathan is one of the strength and conditioning coaches for the University of Houston football team, so we got a tour. And there's a bit of a funny story that goes along with that that I hope will eventually develop into something. We'll see. But as we were walking into through the football stadium into the weight room, I saw the indoor track area, and it had the Carl Lewis track and field. And it's like, Carl Lewis track and field? And Nathan said, yeah, Carl Lewis is I said, he's the coach here. And I was like, Carl Lewis is the coach of the University of Houston track and field team? And he's like, yeah. And I said, the Carl Lewis? And he said, yeah. Well, Nathan was born in 1991, and Carl Lewis was ending his Olympic career in 1991, 1992. And so he didn't know that much about Carl Lewis and his Olympic endeavors and just what a fabulous athlete Carl Lewis is. And Carl Lewis is also a vegan athlete and became vegan in 1991 to improve his athletic performance for the Olympics. So if you look up, famous vegan athletes, Carl Lewis' name will come right up. And of course, I was chiding Nathan that I need to meet Carl Lewis, and I would love to get him on the podcast. So that's the work in the future, is I'm trying to get Carl Lewis so we can get him on the podcast to talk about improved athletic performance and how he approaches his athletes now since he's vegan. So I think that would be a really interesting discussion. So I'll keep working on that for the future. But anyway, we went into the weight room and the indoor practice field at the football stadium, and I had a great time. And so was my mother and Addie and Michael and Nathan, with this giant facility to ourselves. And, so we, played around with some of the equipment, and, took some photos. And, I have no vertical jump, but I was able to get on the box where the football players, jump their highest vertical jumps and play with the tackling dummies a little bit and some of the sleds. So it was a great time. We got on the Rogue bike and, did some intervals to see how many watts we could get up. And, everybody, my mother, played with the tackling dummies and, at 86, and we were passing a football around a little bit. And, it was interesting that, as a family, we had such a good time with sports that day. We'd started the morning off with a 5-mile run with Addie and Nathan and Michael and I and their dog Haas. And then we moved on after a nice plant-strong breakfast with some homemade pancakes from Addie and a big fruit bowl onto the football stadium. And, while we were there, we talked about, some breath work and how you could incorporate, some hypoxic training when you're doing some workouts. So we did a farmer's carrying kettlebells to see how far we could walk, holding our breath. And what that does is it improves your CO2 tolerance and, helps to actually get everything. It kind of gives you another gear as far as athletic training. So we talked a little bit about that and did that. Then we went off to TopGolf to play, to shoot, to hit some golf balls. And if you've never heard of TopGolf, it's basically an urban center for people to go and hit golf balls. It's a newfangled driving range that's computerized, and there's boxes out in the driving range that if you hit them, you get so many points. I never really understood the point scoring system too much. And you play each other with how many points that you can get. And meanwhile, you're in a kind of there's a fan there, and you're enclosed, or you're at least out of the sun. And of course, you can get food and drink, and you're, by other people, and there's music, and so it's a fun way to spend the afternoon. And my, again, 86-year-old golfing mother cleaned house with the rest of us, hitting straight down the middle every time. So I think she scored with a golf ball into the pit every time she took a swing, where the rest of us were scattering golf balls all over the place. I tried to get a bet with our neighbors, that were in next table over, but they were watching her as well and realized that she was a force not to take a bet with. So it was a fun time had by all. But again, it was a great way to spend a day being very active. I think a lot of times when people get together, they sit down and it's all around food. But with us, it was all around moving and seeing and doing things. And it was great, across the ages, So from Addie's mere 27 to my mother's mere 86, we spent the day together doing activities. And ended it by coming home and making a light dinner with beans and rice and vegetables and greens, and making Addie a plant-based vegan birthday cake. So a good time. I think I shared it with Mom as well. But it was a good time had by all. And I think it's so important that, part of being plant-based and being active is that you can do things when you go on vacation or you go to visit people and find out what's in the area so that you can try something different. I grew up as a golfer, but I hadn't touched a golf club for many years. It was nice to pick up a golf club and swing. And, of course, I hadn't passed football for a while either. We did that, and try the different equipment. And because we're all mobile and do things, there wasn't any risk of getting injured, and we had plenty of energy to go and do these things. So I'd encourage you, especially since summer's coming up, start training for your vacation so that you can make the best of it. You don't want to be tired by the afternoon or the first day and not be able to do things. So if you start a training program now, if you're going someplace where there's elevation or there's more walking, then make sure you incorporate some hills and some circuit trainings to get yourself ready for these different activities. It was interesting that I also listened to an interview with Yogi triathlete and Bob Babbitt this week, and Bob Babbitt was talking about how play brings people together and how sport is so important, and not only maintaining health, but maintaining a good attitude and relationships with people. And the good things that can come out of sport, people can get a really improved sense of confidence by knowing that they can do things. And triathlon is one of those things that, everybody has, or most everybody has been in a pool in their life. They've ridden a bike as a kid, and they can run. So it doesn't take necessarily a lot of equipment to, do a sprint triathlon, and it's a great way to cross-train, and it's a great way of all ages. There's a lady named Ruth Heidrich that's been on this podcast, that she's a breast cancer survivor that started doing triathlons in her 40s, and she's in her 80s and still doing some version of triathlon. So whether it's just going to the local pool and swimming a few laps, taking a little bike ride, taking a walk, you can do all these different sports that moves different parts of your body and really can keep you in shape and keep you connected to other people. I think we get caught up that exercise becomes some sort of penalty that we need to do to maintain our health. But in reality, it's a great way to look at it is it's play. It's being able to go out and be with other people and play and have a good time and stay in good shape. So if you're training to stay in good shape and have a good time by playing and enjoying the process, not just as a means to an end, but really enjoying the process with what you do. So it doesn't have to be, going to a gym and going through the same exercises day in and day out and the same things. It can be, mix it up a little bit. It could be swimming, biking, running, walking, outside, inside, body weight movements, boot camp. So, try to keep it fresh, and, you move different parts of your body, but you also connect with different people, and you don't get bored, and it's not so monotonous or I have to do this. Because I think when you have to do something, it's when you start not doing it. And a lot of people, especially, women that are, 60s and above, Title I think it's Title X, Title 9, I can't remember what it's called, but there weren't a lot of women's sports back in the day, so a lot of women weren't exposed to doing a lot of different things. So it's a little bit foreign. So you have to find what makes you happy. So if you like a body pump course, or a class, or again a combination of a variety of things, makes you much more likely to do the physical activity and to keep in shape. But you got to move your body. And we know from, previous talks that the better shape that your body and the better your prognosis is, and the better your cardiac system is for sure. Sometimes we think we can't do things because we have arthritis or a bad knee or a bad something. And I would encourage you, if you feel like you have limitations, to check out the documentary Emmanuel's Gift. I'll try to put a link on the show notes. You can get it at Amazon Prime, or I'm sure Netflix probably has it. But it's about a man that he was born without a tibia, and so he had a very deformed leg. And in Ghana, when you're deformed, you're basically, your family's told to either get rid of you, kill you, take you out into the woods, abandon you. A lot of the people that are disabled become beggars. But Emmanuel didn't want any part of that, and he was encouraged by his mother. And, he had a very difficult life, but he didn't beg. He started shining shoes. And he wanted to show other people that were disabled that, you didn't have to be a beggar, that you were worth something. Just because your body was disabled doesn't mean that you were an inadequate person. And so he wrote Bob Babbitt, Challenged Athletes Foundation, asked for a bike so that he could ride this bike one-legged across Ghana to improve awareness and, just show what people that were challenged could actually do. So it's a great story of all the things that happened to him, and with the help of the Challenged Athlete Foundation, but mainly because of, sport and his ability to want to move, that he connected a lot of people and, continues to influence a lot of people through what he does. So check that movie out, Emmanuel's Gift. But again, sport builds confidence and connects people and makes them better. So, nobody's limited. This poor guy ended up having an amputation of his leg and, ran. There's another guy, Rudy Garcia, that is a child who was born with severely deformed legs and asked to have amputation so that he could, walk like, use prosthesis and get around better because he was immobile otherwise. So there's so many great things that happen, and you can be inspired by these people that have what you may think are challenges, but to them they're opportunities. So it makes you think, and it makes you want to get off the couch and do something and not feel so sorry for yourself because something just doesn't feel quite right. The other thing we did as a family was cook together. It was Addie's birthday and my mother's birthday, but we all cooked together and made simple food, but it was good food. It was colorful food. A lot of fruit. We had rice and beans and made burritos and. We made a pizza, but with lots of vegetables. So, when we do things that seem like junk food, it's really heavy on the greens, really heavy on the vegetables, big piles of veggies and salads and things. And it doesn't take a lot of time in the kitchen, but we enjoyed preparing it together and eating it together. And in the comfort of Addie and Nathan's home, we could, talk and sit around the table. So a good time had by all. One of the things that happened a couple times this week, there's always a theme to what I experience and then kind of bring to the podcast, but I had a couple people mention that, I thought this plant-based thing was, you don't have to count calories and that you can eat all you want and you'll continue to lose weight and you'll become thin and trim and everything will be okay. And a couple people were really disappointed because it didn't seem to be happening for them, even though they had put in a lot of effort and in some respects made a lot of gains, but not to the point where they were both happy with the results. And it seemed like, it's like, well, why is this such a struggle when I hear people talk about, I've lost 200 pounds and life is great and I eat all I want. And I like to, kind of nix that a little bit because, just like the Weight Watchers commercial when they say, you can have pizza or you can have cake, there's always a bit of a fine print on these things. Sure, you can eat all you want as far as fruit and whole foods and broccoli and kale, and you're not going to get into trouble. But when you start eating processed foods along with those foods, it still adds up. So if someone is having, hummus, which is, made with oil if you purchase it, or even made at home because you can eat so much more of it, and you're continuously snacking on hummus and vegetables, or hummus and pita bread that may be made without oil, or you're just, you're still, as life has it, eating out. And then when you eat out, you're not getting the quality of food that you or the control of food that you have at home. So there's more oil, more processed, maybe some, foods that you wouldn't normally have. Then those calories add up and come in on the backside and can derail people. And so you could be doing really good for 3 or 4 days. And then if you're derailed with, some high calorie processed, even vegan food, you can still get into trouble and not lose the weight that you thought you were going to lose as fast as you were really going to lose it. And it's disappointing for people because sometimes, they see other people that seem to be making such great strides, and it seems to be so quick. But in the reality, it's not as quick as, looking back seems quicker than as it's happening to people. So, it takes a while for people to lose, those big amounts of weight. And, of course, the lower your weight is, the less calories that you actually need to maintain that weight. So the further you lose, the less calories you need to take, and your intake, needs to be adjusted accordingly. So I'm not a big proponent of counting calories for sure, but I'm a big proponent of looking at whether something is calorie dense or not. So again, whole foods, broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and apples and papaya and, whole foods that you're eating like that, it's not a problem. But when you start to look on the sides of things and you're looking at, hummus and breads and pastas and, more processed foods, or if there's any oil and sauces, heavy sauces tend to get people. That's where people can get derailed and their progress is not as good as what it could be. And, don't let anybody fool you. Everybody struggles. We're all tempted by, the chips now and then, or the hummus, all these, are eating out, getting into oil, getting an appetizer that, maybe not with a sauce that you wouldn't necessarily eat at home. You go down the road of even homemade pastries and cakes that are made completely plant-based, even without oil. They become calorie dense, so they can start to add up over time, and you can kind of get derailed. And everybody struggles a little bit with that, and don't let anybody say that they don't. The more you do this, the less that you are apt to have the problem, because you start to find foods that are within, the range. For instance, I was a big ice cream person. When I first went vegan, you could have vegan ice cream, but I found that, over time, fruit became my friend, and, and then I would do sorbets, homemade sorbets, homemade, banana ice cream type of things. And, now I also mix it with regular fruit, so that now I'm eating whole fruit. Even when you blend fruit, that you can make something highly calorie dense if you don't watch over time. So, just have to kind of keep things in mind that the more whole foods you eat, the closer they are that coming out of the ground, the less problem that you're actually going to have. And everybody struggles, if people tell you that life is great and they don't have any issues, then, they're not really telling you the truth. So everybody struggles now and then what to choose, and if they're out or they're traveling or with temptation. So hang in. It's a process. Don't beat yourself up so fast. Keep asking the question, is this going to make me healthy? Is there another alternative that I will be satisfied with it would make me be healthier? Again, ice cream versus fruit, making the frozen fruit that's blended, making, smoothies and making popsicles out of those as opposed to sugary popsicles, doing a pizza with lots of vegetables, of course, holding the cheese, holding, and having more vegetables than the bread part, having a salad with that, filling up on, the whole foods, making sure you're getting in the nutrients are ways around that. But you have to be mindful about what you're eating. It's not an open buffet for vegan food. I'm always asked about nuts and seeds, and good fats. And I think we tend to worry a lot about how much of the bad stuff can we eat and get away with, as opposed to focusing on what are all the good things that I can eat. Omega-3 fatty acids are important. You have to remember they also come in the form of kale and pinto beans, as well as chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds. So it's easy to get enough of those without having to worry about having, excessive amounts of nuts. And most nuts have more omega-6s. They're high calories. Excessive fats can be turned into, help end up being converted into cholesterol. So it's virtually impossible not to get enough fat in your diet. I always say we're wearing fat. So if we need fat for fat's sake, we always have it. Our body would like to burn carbohydrates for our daily activity. Fat is storage. So, we don't have to worry about having excess of storage. I think it comes from, 8 days of starvation. Families may have, had little to eat at one point, and you become, somewhat obsessed with having enough food around or having your fair share. But the reality of it is we don't need that much food, and there's an abundance of food in most places. So, hoarding it or having all this excess of food around just kind of sets us up for disaster. So we don't have to, don't worry so much about getting enough fat. Worry about getting enough fiber. Worry about getting enough antioxidants and phytonutrients. The risk of cancer goes up when you're overweight because adipose tissue is very metabolically active, especially, inside the abdominal cavity. So things that you eat for a cancer cell to grow, we all think about genetics. I had someone inquire, if they have a gene for an increased risk of cancer, should they have those organs out? You've heard of Angelina Jolie and the BRCA gene, and is it better to just get those organs that might cause cancer out as an adult? The reality of it is we don't have to turn on our bad genes. They're turned on by our environment and things that we eat. And, dairy and casein protein is one of the big stimulators, not only casein protein, but all the estrogen around dairy. And so that can cause the tumor to grow. The more inflammation we have, the more, the more white cells that we have that carry these abnormal cells that cause metastasis or spread of cancers. But eating fruits and vegetables can actually decrease the blood flow to the cancers and actually cause the cancers to actually destroy themselves. Our body can take care of, it's called apoptosis, where our body takes care of abnormal cells and DNA. So that can happen if given the opportunity. But if our body's always in a state of inflammation and always in a state of being overfed and in excess, then we can't actually heal ourselves. So when you're, tempted with some of these foods, or you're wondering, can I get enough of, or how much is enough of this bad thing, look more towards, what good things can I eat that will help me be healthier. And that certainly is going to be in the field of fruits and vegetables. There was a review in Journal of American Medical Association in the beginning of March that, brought up the egg and cholesterol again. How unhealthy is eating an egg? That simple little egg, is it bad? It's been on Time magazine, whether one egg is bad. How bad could one little egg be? Well, first of all, it's not just one little egg. When you're not counting eggs, again, I've said it before, eggs are in food, and so those count. But if this study actually looked at over 29,000 people over 31 years, and every additional 300 milligrams of cholesterol increased the cardiovascular risk by 17%, increased all-cause mortality by 18%. So the author said, moderation is really indicated, because cholesterol is not only saturated fat, but cholesterol is an issue. Our body makes 250 milligrams of cholesterol a day. We don't need any more. So the 250 to 300 milligrams extra that comes in an egg is really it really puts us over the limit right up front. it's kind of funny when it comes to food, and especially egg. For some reason, it's I don't know why eggs are so glorified ever, but it's like, again, do this moderation thing. But when it comes to cigarettes, it took us a long time as physicians to say cigarettes actually cause cancer. But now if you go on to about any site, as little as 5 cigarettes a day will significantly increase your risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer. So we don't say as physicians, well, just smoke one and you'll be okay. So it's like that with eggs. It's like, so it's going to increase your risk, your cardiovascular risk of mortality. It's not going to do anything to help you avoid cancer. It's not going to help you to do anything to avoid heart disease. It's not going to keep your weight under control. So it's just for the sake of eating an egg. How bad will it hurt you? Just don't eat it. But we're afraid to say that, and I'm sure it's partly because of, who funds and who supports whatever magazine or journal things are in or what research is done. But the reality of it is, just with a cigarette, don't smoke them and don't eat the eggs. You're going to be better for it. There's nothing that you have to have an egg in that makes it a necessary thing. We can get plenty of the other vitamins and minerals from other plant foods. And if an egg is what you're looking for, tofu is a great alternative. You can do, we do our tofu egg sandwich, and this is a good time to say, yes, the book is being printed for our proof copy. Addie and I will do a podcast next week launching the book, hopefully, once we look through the proof and make sure it looks as good in person as it did online. And one of the recipes in our book is a tofu egg sandwich, because I grew up eating egg sandwiches now and then. So if you marinate tofu just right and put it on a whole wheat piece of bread with lettuce and tomato, you have an egg sandwich. So there's no reason, you can take tofu and make a tofu scramble for breakfast, and there's no problem. So there's no reason to eat eggs. So you can cut out 17% increased risk of cardiovascular mortality and all-cause mortality 18%. You just get rid of that by getting rid of that one egg. And again, we know that it's much more than an egg. And just don't turn on those bad genes. Somebody, again, asked me about, the gene that increased the risk of ovarian cancer. Well, I'm sure I carry the genes for increased risk of heart disease. Everybody in my family, died early of heart disease, my grandparents, my uncles, and I don't want to turn that gene on. So I'm eating plant-based, and everything I put in my mouth is aimed at how don't I get cardiovascular disease. I'm going to get my greens in. I'm going to produce nitric oxide. I'm going to keep healthy. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to keep in shape. So I'm not going to turn those genes on. So you don't have to turn on the cancer genes either. Just because we have them doesn't mean we actually have to express them in a bad form. And remember, you vote with your dollars. So if you're getting fast food, processed foods, then more and more of those type places are going to pop up. If you're getting more and more produce and organic produce at your local supermarket, then more of those markets and produce will start to show up. I hear people talking about that their local grocery stores don't carry the produce that they want, but then they go out to dinner 6 days a week and they go to fast food chains. And so you have to be able to support your local grocery and your local organic food producer for them to be able to stock the food that you need, and it becomes a vicious cycle. So vote with your dollar. And also, don't be afraid to try new things when it comes to vegetables and fruits, or when it comes to fitness. So like we talked to before, step it up, do a class, whether it's Tai Chi or yoga or, a spinning class. Try something different. Addie has been designing our circuit challenges for the class and the membership program. And some people are afraid to try because they might not be able to do all the movements. And, she's done a very good job about putting a video up and, speaking with people individually about how you can modify the movements so that anybody can do it. If it's a step up, then, you can step up to a bench or, do a box jump, or you can, step up to just a small step if that's, that's where you need to start. You have to start where you are and then work yourself. And don't be ashamed to start where you are, but you need to start. and go through the different progressions. So, if you're not trying new things or testing yourself, then you're going to deteriorate instead of grow. So, start where you are, try a little bit of new things, and, keep pushing forward. I'm so proud, again, of our members that are doing yoga in the office. When I look back and I see them that, some people couldn't get off the ground, but now they're just, go right in and get on their mats and get on the ground because they have confidence that they're going to get up. Just like when we talked about earlier, sports gives you confidence. Doing these things give you confidence. And if you can do this, then maybe you can pick the right food. Try it, make a different recipe. So it gives you, one thing gives you confidence and it blends into the next. If you're healthy in your food choices, you're going to be healthy in your exercise choices. You may be healthy in your vacation choices. If you're going someplace, you're going to do something active rather than doing something that's passive. So keep fighting to get a little bit better and try something different. I have, my mom's a perfect example at 86. She did TopGolf for the first. She golfs every week, but TopGolf was new. Trying some of the things she did in the football stadium was new. We have other members that are in their 80s that are doing yoga for the first time. So you're never too old or disabled or afflicted that you can't try something new or begin where you are and get a little bit better. So have confidence, vote with your dollars, and make every day a little bit better than the day before. Thanks for listening. I look forward to speaking to you about the release of the cookbook soon. If you have any questions, please go to drdulaney.com. It's DoctorDulaney. And check out the website. I do a blog post every week as well as the podcast. You can find out about the membership practice there. You don't have to be in Florida or in town. We have people all over the country that participate in our online programs and speak with Addie and I on the phone on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, however you want to do it. And, nothing is cookbooked. It is all personal. And we're dedicated to you as an individual, not as a just group of people. So I think you might like what you see. If you have any questions about that or anything else, email me at jami@drdulaney.com. It's jami@drdulaney.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Be well, move your body, get some sunshine, and try some new organic vegetables.